Hey guys, so we are in my YouTube corner where I keep most of my YouTube makeup. All of my eyeshadow palettes are right here. I wanted to do a makeup stash today. I actually haven't been feeling the best. For the past couple weeks, I've been really sick, so I haven't actually worn any makeup, which is crazy. I had the inkling to want to wear makeup, and then I got really sick, and I'm actually feeling better. I haven't really ate that much today. Actually, I haven't ate that much for the past few days, but I'll work on that and I'll do an update video for you guys. Anyways, I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the makeup palettes I have in my YouTube stash collection. So let's get into it. Here's drawer number 1. I just want you guys to know that this is actually overflowing. I have a palette that doesn't fit in here. I'm hoping doing this video I can do some reorganizations and, stuff. I've already filmed a declutter for my third declutter of this collection, and it's actually gotten bigger since then, but I'm more happy with it because there was one palette that just being in this collection just did not make me happy, and that's cute to get rid of it. But anyways, the first palette I ever brought into my YouTube collection, and I was like, I have to have a YouTube collection separate from my regular collection, was this Hard Candy and Marilyn Monroe palette. I love Marilyn Monroe. I'm absolutely obsessed with her. She's so beautiful, and yes, I know she's passed away. I talk about people on past tense, I guess, but she was so beautiful, and I love everything Marilyn Monroe. I even have the ColourPop and Jasmine Chiswell Marilyn Monroe collection. I love it. I don't use this blush or this highlight as blush or highlight. I use them on my eyes instead. And I think that this is a nice palette. It's hard panned pretty bad, but I have had it for over a year, and I do believe the shelf life on it was like, yeah, 12 months, and I've had it for over a year, so I probably should get rid of this, but I have such a deep emotional connection to it, and I don't even think that they still sell this anymore. I had like the mascara topper and stuff like that in this collection, and I just didn't like it. Okay, so the next is this Jeffree Star Custom 9-Pan palette. It has a ColourPop shadow in here, and then the rest are curated colors. I have this little neutral row, and then I have some colors. I love digging into this for pink looks, for colorful looks. I did hand pick out this pink, this pink, this pink, and this one, and the rest I believe were in mystery boxes. Even this ColourPop was a mystery box one. And I'm happy to have it actually, because putting it in this little 9-pan, it stands out a lot better in the sense of I have the option to do color, and I have the option to add some glitter, and I actually really like that in a palette. And then I have this black for the depth. I absolutely adore Jeffree Star's eyeshadow formula. I've talked about it before. I love it. I think it's a really good formula. I have every palette Jeffree has ever released, so don't judge me. Except for the Star Wedding palette, I don't have that one yet. But this is the Jeffree Star Cosmetics Mini Blood Sugar palette. This was actually my favorite palette in this collection for a very, very long time. And you can see it's very well used, very well loved. I just don't tend to reach for warm tones like this as much as I used to, and to be completely honest, it's still a great palette. I would much rather use this over the Blood Sugar palette because this is not as overwhelming, let's say. And this is such a unique, beautiful, shimmery red, true red. I don't have anything like that in any of my collections. The next palette is the Jeffree Star Star Ranch palette. I got this in the summer mystery box last year, 2021, and definitely not what I was expecting, but I do love this palette for this specific shade. I need to get it in a single. He does have it in a single because I feel like I can't let this palette go until I have this in a single. Every time I reach for this palette, I'm always diving into this shade. The other shades I have from Jeffree Star and other palettes are another, so they don't mean that much to me. I definitely see myself decluttering this after I get Yak Farm in a single. Alright, next is this Jeffree Star Custom 28-Pan palette. It's a huge one. Yes, there's a ColourPop shade in here, but the rest are Jeffree Star. Like I said, I got most of these in mystery boxes, so I didn't actually individually purchase these. They are good shades, though. I did try to organize them a little bit. I like custom palettes because I think that like they offer just a little bit more in terms of being able to really fit your specific style. So you know, like when I'm diving into this 28 pan, I 9 times out of 10 am going for a smoky look with like a pop of like a shimmer like this or this or this or even like these ones. So yeah. Next is this Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson Mini Controversy palette. I only got this because I was diving into Jeffree Star Cosmetics and I wanted to have every single palette. Now I'm not like that. I'm very okay with decluttering this one day. It's just I only declutter one palette every declutter because I declutter my main stash myself more, and then I get rid of stuff that I'm using on YouTube to bring in new stuff. So I try to declutter one palette from this collection every declutter, and as you guys know, I've already decluttered the palette for this next declutter, so this is obviously going to stay for a while. I'm not a fan of Shane Dawson. I'm not a fan of this color story. I didn't like the controversy or the conspiracy palette's color story. It's just really weird. Okay, next is this LA Colors Peach Fizz palette. So it looks like this. This is actually not that bad for a fall look, which when I'm filming this, we're actually going into fall, so I can actually see this moving from my YouTube kit to my personal kit because I will wear warm tones more in the fall personally. And you can see I actually hit pan on this shade. If you don't know, my first declutter ever was decluttering the Berry Kiss palette, which is the sister palette to this. And so far I've decluttered the Berry Kiss palette, the Manny and Morphe palette, and another LA Colors palette that's like a day and night palette. So you kind of can see like where I'm going with, like, it doesn't have to be the best brand, I just have to like the shadows, and I felt like I could work with these shadows a lot better than the Berry Kiss palette. Okay, next is the Jeffree Star Cosmetics Mini Orgy palette. He doesn't sell this anymore, which is why I'm so hesitant to get rid of it, but it is an all shimmer palette, and I'm not the biggest fan of all shimmer palettes. I do have a 2 looks 1 palette using this palette, and I ventured into using some of them in the crease, and a couple of them, like this shade and this shade, looked fine in the crease, so I want to dive into using it like more like that, but it's just so hard, so I don't really use this palette that much. Okay, this next one is another top fave of mine, so much so that I actually put it in my next giveaway, which is the 250 subscriber giveaway, and it's the Jeffree Star Mini Breaker palette. This is the palette I reach into when I want color as well as that other 9 pan, but sometimes I just want colors like this. I only got this palette for this shade right here. It's called Oral, and it's kind of like a multi-chrome, like a duochrome. It's kind of like a blue, purple, green kind of shift. It's not very strong. I guess I'll swatch it for you guys. I'll swatch some shades. It's not very strong, so if you're getting this palette just for this shade, I do think you're gonna be quite disappointed because it's not bam in your face like what you're thinking. However, the other colors were such a nice surprise to me that I was okay with it, so much to the fact that this jumped up to like one of my top 10 palettes of all time. Okay, we're diving into the second drawer now, so be prepared. This is the Jeffree Star Cosmetics Weirdo palette. I got this when it released in the Halloween mystery box. I think that was such a good idea on his part to have a new collection come out and the mystery box and include certain parts of that collection in the mystery boxes as well as some other exclusive items. I hope he does that again soon. But this is the Weirdo palette. I love this palette. This is another one of my favorite palettes in this collection. I just love that you could have like the kind of like light grunge, super smoky, or warm tone smoky. I love that. I think he curated this palette perfect. Like it's seriously amazing, and the quality on these mattes is amazing. The quality of this razor blade shimmer, like, oh my god, like I barely tapped my finger into that, and look at that. That is so stunning. Like you can see the difference between this shimmer and Oral. Like you can see what I mean by you're not going to get the pop. Okay, next up is the Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson Mini Controversy palette. This is the Emerald Edition one, so it's a little bit different in the sense of it has one different shade. This is such a great green. I can't part ways with this palette because of how amazing this green is. I have to show it to you guys. I'm sorry. Now I'm swatching. I wasn't planning to have a swatch sesh in this video, but like, look at that green. I can't get rid of this palette just for that green. I don't have anything like that in my collection. I was not planning for this to be a swatch video, but it's kind of working like that. I mean, like, look, that's my kind of green, and I'm wearing green shadow from a ColourPop palette, and you can kind of see, like, I haven't even worn it that long, and like, you can see. Anyways, this is the Rare Beauty Magnetic Spirit palette. I got this on sale, and I had never tried any Rare Beauty shadows, so I was like, that's cool to get it on sale. Till I got it home and found out it was an all shimmer palette. Now, unlike the Mini Orgy palette, this does not work in your crease. It just ends up looking super duper messy. You need mattes to work with this. This is a good companion palette for sure. So I can see myself getting rid of this, but I have absolutely fallen in love with this purple shade and this light purple shade so much that that's why I keep holding on to this in my collection. I will say I would be down to try some more Rare Beauty eyeshadow palettes if Selena Gomez releases any more. So this is the Kylie Cosmetics Original Bronze palette. I know I need to get rid of this, but I don't care. She has re-released this like 4 times. I don't care. So I'm good. I'm good. This is a good warm neutral palette. It still works the same as it used to, even though it's way past its shelf life. It's got 24 months. It's way past its shelf life. So this is a good palette for warm tones. I really drifted away from the warm tones though, and I have quite a few warm tone palettes in this collection, and you're gonna be like, why did you drift away from the warm tones if you have 9 warm tone palettes in this collection? Well, warm tones were very, very popular when I got into the YouTube space and when I got into makeup. So you get what you're getting at, like you get what is, you know, in style basically. Here is a palette I love. It's the Laura Lee Los Angeles Sleigh Bell palette. Mine is a little broken, so I can't lift it up all the way. This green, I have to show you and compare it to that Shane Dawson one. I have a video comparing these two, so you will see the difference. But that, greens are everything. When they're done right, they're just so gorgeous, and you can't get this anymore. I'll never part ways with this. This is one of my favorite palettes, even though it definitely is hard to work with if you don't use another palette. But you get what I mean. This is the Laura Lee Los Angeles Boss Babe palette. She doesn't make this one either. It's another warm tone neutral palette. I could see myself getting rid of this one eventually, but I think I would end up getting rid of the Kylie one before I got rid of this one, just because this has more pigment to it. Oh my god, this is another one of my favorites. This is the Dominique Cosmetics Unconditional palette. I fell in love with this palette because she is a boy mom and I have 2 boys, and she named a shade after Jaden, which is her son, in this palette. And this is that shade. I'll swatch it for you guys. That glitter is also so amazing, in case you are curious. Definitely one of the best glitter formulas I've ever worked with. But look at that. That is such a good match. Dominique Cosmetics has some really amazing formulas, hands down. Dominique Cosmetics is a lot like the Jeffree Star Cosmetics to me in the fact that I fell in love with the shadow formula, and I actually have all of her palettes, but the bigger palettes are in my personal collection. Like the Jeffree Star bigger palettes are in my personal collection. This is the She Glam Glitz List palette. So this is not the best palette in the world, but it's just a stunning packaging. It's got way too many shimmers, and that's always my problem with products, with companies that release eyeshadow palettes, is that they don't know how to moderate the shimmers to the mattes. You can have a great palette like this and just override it with too many shimmers, and that's what She Glam did with this palette. This is a matte, this is a matte, and that's a matte. You're not going to be able to create a full look with just these 2 mattes. You're going to need something to kind of transition. You're going to need a lighter brown. And I mean, this is good for deepening up stuff, but not everybody wants to go in deepen up. And this might be a little too dark for certain people. For me, this is a very, very dark crease shade, so I can't start in the crease with this. And this actually has some glitter in it. And this is not matte. This is actually a very light shimmer satin, but it doesn't come off as matte. So, yeah. Okay, next is the Anastasia Soft Glam 2 palette. This is the first palette I ever purchased this year. And it looks like this. This is the first Anastasia palette that I purchased, ever. Well, in a long time at least. And it's actually at the bottom of my list when I'm rating the Anastasia palettes I have. I have 3 palettes. This one, No Vu, and I have Primrose. And this is actually the bottom. I actually think that this is very dull and boring compared to the other 2 palettes. Okay, next is the e.l.f. Cosmetics Cookies and Dreams palette. This is amazing. I actually have a video comparing this to the first Mothership from Pat McGrath. It's actually color story-wise very, very close to it. Formula, no. But color story, yeah, it's actually quite close to it. And I actually really like this palette. This palette has such an amazing story, and the fact that I saw Kelly Strack use this, and I was like, that is not my color story. I will not get that. But the other stuff in that collection, I'm gonna get. And I had money on me, and I went with my mom to the store to pick up the Cookies and Dream collection so I could do a video on it. And they were just putting the Cookies and Dream palette collection out. So I saw this and I was like, well, I might as well just get the palette to use it, and then I can just declutter it. And it has survived since February of 2022 in my collection. Ooh, next is a heartbreaker. It's the Natasha Denona Star palette. This is a heartbreaker because it's expensive. But this is such a gorgeous palette. I'm actually really glad I did make the investment to get this palette. It's such a good quality, and it's really nice to be the two divided 9-pan, so you have the warm side and you have the cool side. I really like that she did that for beginners, and this is a really, really good, just really great quality. Okay, third drawer. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Instant Eyes Pillow Talk palette. $75, and this is actually quite cheap, but I do have to say I would rather suggest this Instant Eyes palette over the quads. I have not liked any quads from Charlotte Tilbury. I think I've bought 4 over the year, and I think I've decluttered 2. And the other 2 I haven't tried. Not a good record. Okay, Pat McGrath Bridgerton 1 palette. Amazing palette. You guys have to see this Regency Blue shade. So stunningly gorgeous. So gorgeous. I mean, this shade right here makes the palette for me. I mean, look at that gorgeousness. Previous Place Warrior 2 palette. I do not feel the same about matte palettes that I do with the shimmer palettes. I actually like all matte palettes. I think that you can make an all matte look, or, you know, I could just dive into another palette and get a shimmer or a single or a pigment. You know, it's not too hard to incorporate a matte palette into my looks like it is for an all shimmer palette for me, because, you know, on average I'm using 3 palettes, 2 to 3 palettes a day. So when I have, you know, 2 all matte palettes and you know, a shimmer single, the look just kind of comes together on its own. Okay, Anastasia Primrose palette. This is probably my second favorite Anastasia palette out of the 3 that I own in this collection. The shimmers are stunningly amazing, but I thought this was a bronzer and a blush when I got this, and I was like, oh, that's just really weird that they did a really warm bronzer and a really light blush. No, they're just big shadows. And I would have rather they just made them normal size and put 2 more shades in. I don't know, I don't agree with the marketing. ColourPop's Aha Honey palette. This is an all yellow palette, and everybody's always going on about yellows. So I was like, I don't have any yellows in my collection, so I got this ColourPop palette for like $9. And I know why I don't have yellows in my collection. Because they look sick, make me look sick, and I'm glad I didn't spend a lot of money on a yellow palette, because I know that yellow shadows make me look sick, and I just don't reach for them that often. Okay, next is the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette. This is the light one. Totally worth the money if you are just now diving into Natasha Denona. Totally worth it. I prefer the light one over the dark one. I think the dark one is a different formula and it's just really bad. A cream blush, a face highlight, and then 5 shadows. Really good form, like really good. Just really good for the price. Here is a palette I was more excited about before I used it, and it's the Profusion Desert Sage palette. This is just like a lot. It's just a lot. I don't like the format of like the flower petals, shadows. It's just no. And it's just really, really big. It's really big. Like, it's just really big. He said his hands up like, what are you doing filming without me? This is the Pat McGrath Mothership 1 Subliminal palette. This is the first Mothership. They are 10 in total now. They are all very unique in their own ways. But they look the same, but they're very unique. Really gorgeous, really nice for cool tones. I definitely like the older Motherships over the newer Motherships. I think that the way she's gone is just, it's just a weird direction. And I would much rather she went back to like cool tones with pops, or like the warm tones with pops, you know, just like, this is an everyday palette. And then you have the pops. Like, I think that that's what people liked the most about the motherships, is you could use it day and night. Okay, this is the Pat McGrath Bridgerton 2 palette. So stunningly gorgeous. Like, this gold is just like everything to me, and so is this shade. I really like these. I actually would prefer the 2 Bridgerton palettes over any mothership. I would prefer just having these 2 Bridgerton palettes because they're just really, really nice, and the packaging is gorgeous. Okay, here's ColourPop's That's Taupe palette. I wanted this because people loved it, and it's a cool tone lover's dream, and I love cool tones. But this was just very, very underwhelming for me. I think that because I have the Stone Cold Fox palette, I don't know. I just was underwhelmed. Now I have the Twist of Slate palette as well, so I'm just underwhelmed, I guess. I have a lot of ColourPop, and it's just so easy for it to get underwhelmed because I've tried it. Okay, this is the Clearly in Love. I hate these little clear packaging ones, not even worth taking out of the box. I also have Clear the Air. This is the orange warm one, and I have the one that broke is Coast is Clear. This is the dark purple one. Mine broke. Okay, Pat McGrath Mothership 2 Sublime. This is, I think, was more geared towards medium skin tones when she created this, but it definitely has the grungy warm tones if you're looking for them, and then pops of color. Really nice palette. It's not one of my absolute favorites. It's probably a medium range Mothership. McGrath Mothership Rose Decadence. I regret getting this. It's very dark rosy tones. I don't know. I would just prefer a Divine Rose palette if I'm going to get these kind of tones and not this little one. I think that the packaging kind of suckered me in for that one. This is the Makeup Revolution Ultimate Nudes Light palette. This is shit. I should have listened to Angelica Nikovis when she said that Makeup Revolution's eyeshadow formula is horrible. She is right. These purples are the reason I wanted this palette, and let me just show you how crumbly they are. I got really good swatches, so like look at how just like there's the Pat McGrath and there's Makeup Revolution. You can just see the difference in quality. ColourPop's Going Coconuts. This is another one of those, I think ColourPop reuses shadows and just renames them, because I have the Going Coconutty palette, which is a quad, and I'm 90% sure it's got like this shade, and that shade, and that shade in it, and they're just renamed. So this is just another ColourPop palette. Like, I'm just so underwhelmed with ColourPop. Okay, so I told you guys I had this. This is the Natasha Denona Glam Face Dark palette. I'm just not a fan of this. I feel like this shade had an overspray. It's just not as pretty as what it was. Like, it's a bronze, and I thought it was an orange kind of color. I don't know. It's just like it's just not as pretty as the light counterpart, but it is still good. Mine, of course, could have been a dud. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend the dark one. No, other people have had good experiences with it though, so I just recommend doing your research before you purchase. This is the ColourPop Secret Admirer palette. I love the unicorn for this, where it like looks like an envelope, like a love letter. It's just so cute. But I'm kind of over the pink tones. Honestly, Pat McGrath has done me in with pink and rose tones. I have to be honest. Like when, what's it called? Moonlit Seduction, the 10th Mothership, was dropped, it was like, girl, you could have went for purple. Like, I would go crazy bananas for an Astral Blitz purple blue shade that's kind of like this, but more purple and more base pigmented. But you're going for the pinks and the roses. Why? You got 4. You got Divine Rose 1, Divine Rose 2. You have Utopian Dream and Moonlit Seduction. They're all literally, like, you don't need all 4 of those. And if you're collecting the motherships, just think of it this way. When you have all 10 of them, you have paid over $1,000. That's something to think about. This is the Profusion Peaceful Peony palette. So this actually really surprised me when I got it. The glitter is actually not that bad. Let me show you. Like, it's not bad at all. Like, that is not bad at all. It's really good glitter. Jackson's making noise. This is Pretty Poppy. Just find your color story. Like, these are honestly really, really good. Definitely better than the Desert Sage palette that I did not like. Just find your color story. You can do full looks with this, avoiding the glitters. Full looks. Okay, here's Terrific Tulip. This is a purple one. I actually am more drawn to this one. I just like these purples, like this purple. This is actually not a bad matte. If you see some glitter in it, my finger might still have some glitter in it, but really good. At McGrath Mothership number 3, this is Subversive. Such a pretty palette. Really, really is. I think I've gotten all these on sale too. Like, honestly, I always go for the Blitz shades in these, but I was more drawn to this and this shade. Like, how crazy is that? It was really crazy. Like, this is called Blitz Amethyst, and it's more of a blue shade. Let me see if I can show you. It's more of a blue shifty shade, like with hints of purple in it. It's just weird. Okay, this is the She Glam Afterglow palette. This is meant to dupe Natasha Denona's gold palette. I keep thinking I see Kai. This is actually really good. I definitely recommend if you like the color story of gold. It's stupid expensive, like $129, and it's like limited edition. I don't even know if she still sells it anymore. Definitely recommend this. This is a really good dupe. This is, I think, one of the cheapest dupes I have. I have 3 dupes, but I definitely think that this one is probably actually the second best. I have 3 dupes. This is the second one, the second best one, but this is probably the cheapest. Really good though. She Glam's Glitz Wiz palette in Brick Lane is meant to dupe Natasha Denona's Metropolis palette, and I think it does a good job duping it. But it's just too much for me. This is too much. This is why I don't like Metropolis, is because it's just too much. And this is also why I don't use this palette, is because it's just too much. Next is the She Glam Adventurous Aries palette. I have a very, very strong pull in my heart for Aries, is because I'm an Aries. But this is just like, I don't think that She Glam really did a good job color story wise with these. I think that they could have did a lot better. Like, why would you put 2 blue silvers with reds? I do not understand. It's a palette that actually really captured my attention. It's the She Glam Chromosome palette and Time Warp. I saw Tati do a review on these when she kind of like came back. These are actually not that bad. They're different, but they're not that bad. This is kind of like a cream shadow. I'll show you in the swatch. So like you have to use it like by itself kind of, but it's definitely like more of a cream shadow. And the packaging reminds me of the Ariana Grande R.E.M. Beauty palettes. I hate those. We'll talk about those later, but these are really good. Is the Velocity palette. This is the other one, and this is the cream shadow in this palette. It's a very beautiful blue purple shift, but like I said, very much creamier than like a regular powder shadow. Okay, so you guys can't see it, but we are in the final drawer, and I'm hoping I can figure something out with this. So let's get into it. So this is the Alter Ego Luster Charm palette. It's the dupe for the Divine Rose 1 palette, and this is actually really, really nice. So I believe this is the Blitz shade, that's a Blitz shade, this one and this one from Divine Rose 1. I could honestly really do without this palette though, so I can see myself decluttering it in the future, just because like I said, I'm just tired of these tones. I'm just tired of them. I will do a swatch comparison with that Luster Charm palette and the Divine Rose 1 palette if you guys want me to though. This is the Alter Ego Artemis palette. It's a 28 pan palette. It's duping Metropolis. Again, I have the same problem with this one that I do with the She Glam one and with Natasha Denona's Metropolis. It's just too much. It's just too much, and I should have known. So this is another palette I can see myself decluttering in the future. This is the Alter Ego Aurora palette. This is meant to dupe Natasha Denona's Sunrise palette, and it definitely does. I have Sunrise, and I don't know where it is, but I do have Sunrise, and I like this palette, but it's just like very dark, warm tones for me. Here is the Alter Ego Canyon palette. So Natasha Denona just released Mini Bronze. If you guys don't know, I don't have Mini Bronze, and I don't know if I'm gonna get Mini Bronze just because like I feel like I can get a similar look with this palette. Just gonna be honest. And even if you have the bronze palette from Natasha Denona, I don't think you need everything, because these brands are actually raising their prices, but they're not changing the quality. So it's the same palette you were getting cheaper, but Natasha is now charging like $29 for it, and it used to be 25 bucks. And there's no difference. There's nothing. There's no difference in the quality. There's no difference in the formula or the size or anything. My light died, so we're gonna have to make do with what we have. This is Alter Ego's Blooms palette. This is the Love dupe from Natasha Denona. Again, I'm over these pinks and purple tones. Thank you, Pat McGrath. Alter Ego's Sahara palette. This is the Natasha Denona I See Baby Biba palette dupe. I have the Biba palette, and I definitely would prefer using this over the Biba palette. If I had this before I had the Biba, I probably would not have purchased Biba, but I mean, it's just a good staple for everybody to have. Like I said, my light died, so we're going to try and hurry through this. Okay, I forgot to turn this light on, sorry. Alter Ego Goddess palette. This is a dupe for the gold palette. This is probably the closest dupe to Natasha Denona's gold, so if you want the formula, this is probably going to be your closest dupe. But any of the ones the three that I showed you are all dupes for it, so yeah. Alter Ego's Shadow Kiss palette. I don't like the warm tone of this Jeffree Star ring light because it just kind of makes me look weird, I think. But this is Shadow Kiss. This is meant to dupe Natasha Denona''s Glam palette. The Glam palette is a cool tone neutral lover's dream. But when I'm looking at this, it makes me like kind of be like, there are 5 mattes and the rest are shimmers. So I think that the Glam palette and this palette have the same issue of overrun with shimmers, not enough mattes. And that's kind of sad when you think about it because the Glam palette is $65. At least it was $65. She could have raised the price. This is the Fairy Tale this is Storybook Cosmetics Fairy Tales palette. This is the Little Red Riding Hood palette. I think that this is super bulky for what it is, and I think that this is actually kind of like what I have in the Aries palette from She Glam. So this is definitely a palette I can see myself decluttering in the future, just because I don't like how bulky it is. I don't like the color story because I feel like I already have it in another palette. I have repeated color stories. I don't know if you guys can tell. Oops, forgot the light. Alright, C Color Cosmetics is Savannah palette, all matte palette, meant to dupe Natasha Denona Safari palette. The Safari palette had a lot of issues. This does not have issues. This is actually pretty freaking good. So if you want the Safari palette, but it's not even available anymore, I definitely recommend this one. This one's really, really good. Love all matte palettes. This cool kind of like undertone, so I'm going to try and stick with this. This is the C Color Cosmetics Golden palette. It's obviously meant to dupe Natasha Denona's gold palette. The only reason I say that this is not the best dupe that I have is because it's kind of cheaper packaging and you can just kind of like tell how cheap it is. But the quality of the shadows is actually not that bad. My light died again. The Folklore Impressionism palette. This is meant to be an impression palette of the Safari palette. This is not good. The packaging is shit. The quality of the shadows is bad. Don't recommend. And it took forever to get to me. Pat McGrath Mothership number 4, Decadence. I don't like the unicarton on this. I think she should have stuck to the original unicarton. This is an all shimmer palette. It's actually really good for an all shimmer palette. Like the shimmers in here are steps up from other companies. Will 100% recommend. Just try to get Motherships on sale because they're like $129 now and they're the same thing. ColourPop Wild Child palette. This is honestly a neutral palette, beautiful, but it's just really, really dark. Like I would get dark, smoky looks with this. My light is like really dying and it makes me sad. This is the She Glam Tenacious Taurus palette. So Brandon's actually a Taurus. And I actually like the color story of this because it definitely goes with the Taurus-y feel. I just wish that there were more earthy tones to this. I have 2 of these. This is the Odin's Eye and Angelica Nikavist's Hella palette. One arrived broken, so they sent me a new one. This is the not broken one. I was going to put this in the giveaway, but then I was like, no, I love this palette so much. I want to try the other Odin's Eye palettes, literally just because of this palette. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. Okay, Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 3, the Experience Mini Palette. Really, really good. You guys need this. The quality on this is amazing. I don't like the color story of Lightwork 4, Volume 4, but I'm just happy having this because I don't use shades like this enough to have 2 palettes. Especially with it being limited edition, I'd really much rather not get it just for the video and it go to somebody who's really going to love those colors and really going to use it. So, Milani All-Inclusive palette, meant to dupe Charlotte Tilbury. Really good if you like natural makeup. Would recommend. Okay, really fast, REM Beauty. This is the Midnight Shadow palette in Baby Doll. I used this today in conjunction with the ColourPop palette. Crap palette. I hate this. I hate hate this. Just wait for the 2 looks 1 palette video to come out with this. This is horrible. I will try the other palettes, but this one was bad. This was really bad, like extraordinarily bad. Like this like hit bad on another level. Really fast, I just want to show you guys this. This is Anastasia's Novu palette. I have this out to use for my next makeup look. Gorgeous, gorgeous palette. Gorgeous. My favorite Anastasia palette that I own. Getting into the nitty-gritty of things. ColourPop's Twist of Slate palette. This is a dupe for like the Patrick Ta palettes. Hate the cream shadow in these, but all the other shadows in this is really good. ColourPop Set in Stone. Again, hate the cream shadow of this, but the other shades, stunning. ColourPop Play It Cool, the newest one. Again, hate the cream shadow, but the other shades, gorgeous. Work really well with each other, which is what you want with shadows. ColourPop's Nude Mood. Love the unicorn on this, which you probably can't see, but here. Yeah, you can't really see. Flowers. Nude palette, stunning. These palettes I actually don't have enough experience with to be able to tell you how I feel about these palettes because I haven't had them long enough. But anyways, this is the ColourPop Blush Crush palette. Pink version of Nude Mood, I guess you could say. Really pretty. This is from the Opal of My Eye collection from ColourPop. This is the What the Shell. It's in the clear packaging. I hate these. This is just kind of a lot like Clearly in Love. This is the one I was the most excited about. This is the Shell Shock one. It's the blue and purple one. But again, I don't like the quality of the clear packaging ones. In the quads, it's fine, but in the palettes, it's just not. This is She Glam's Gifted Gemini. My sister is a Gemini, and when I looked at this palette, I was like, my sister would not wear these colors, so I don't know where they're getting this Gemini color story from. This is all colorful mattes. Like, my sister would not wear this. My sister is pink neutrals. Okay, last palette is this She Glam Glitz Wiz Ecstasy palette. This I think is meant to do a Huda Beauty palette. I don't have much experience with this palette. This is the newest to my collection, but it's tons. So yeah, I kind of accomplished what I wanted in fitting all those palettes into that last drawer so it's not overflowing. So yay me, that was great. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So of course, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that social media great stuff really helps this channel out. And remember, it costs you this much to support this channel. Remember, it costs you this much to see this gorgeous, beautiful little boy of mine, who is just the most precious thing ever. You blow a kiss? Alright, you guys. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye, guys. I love that face.